I'm quite frankly tired of the 144,000 or the quote unquote chosen ones or the quote unquote enlightened ones, awakened ones, right? Being demonized, being blamed, being villainized for hurting people in lower frequencies because we question their belief systems or we pull the rug out from under them. That's not fair. And here's what I want to say about it. The discomfort I have to endure being systemically surrounded by belief systems that completely oppose my own, that are just completely spiritually blind and flawed, and having to listen to it, having to see it. And yet when someone like me speaks out against it and stands 10 toes down on a completely valid perspective, I'm the problem. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's like this, the people that are meant to be and placed here to be the solution to these ascension issues are so hated. And it's like, it's absurd to me. And so I'm very spiritual and I speak to spirit. So I literally will ask and then I will receive. Clear communication. So I'm asking the master. I said, Carl Jung, how did you handle these feelings? How did you handle having a mind that held a perspective that you knew was valid, that you knew was helpful? And to be I can only imagine the amount of opposition this man received when he was alive. He's loved and adored now. But I assure you that when he was actually here promoting these ideas, he was questioned. I'm sure he was called evil and crazy just like the rest of us are. And Jordan Peterson talks about this. He says that in school, when he was attending school for his psychology doctorate, Jung is demonized. Jung is seen as problematic. Jung is ostracized intellectually still, right? So it's like the spiritual community embraces Jung, but there are other facets, of the healing, quote unquote, industry that don't embrace him. And yet he's right. So it's very interesting for me. So I asked Jung directly, and as soon as I asked, right, I don't hear voices. Sometimes I'll receive thoughts, but I'm very physically oriented because my 12th house is Virgo, so I will physically see things. So as soon as I asked, a car drives by and the license plate says rum. And I'm like, okay, we have a drinker. His coping skill was drinking alcohol. And I was like, okay, before I get too invested in this, I asked Google, of course, did Carl Jung drink alcohol? Yeah, from a very young age, Carl Jung knew he had a bit of a drinking problem, and he enjoyed the gloriousness of feeling drunk. So that was one of his coping skills, right? And we'll talk about this when I really get into, after my book release, when I really get into 257 and 857 frequencies, the pathway that is there. That's the pathway of darkness, trauma, anger, all of those unacceptable energies, right? The darker energies, it all stems from the same place, the same frequency pathway. And I know I'm just kind of venting a little bit today, but it's hard. It's hard being enlightened and awakened and high frequency, being surrounded by people who are not. And it doesn't mean you can't have friendships with other people. It doesn't mean that you can't have fun. It's just, it's hard because the same passion, the same perspective, the same purpose ultimately to change the world in a certain way, you have no support from others relative to that because they don't see the world the same way. They haven't attained the same frequency. So it's pretty much you. You know what I mean? And we're placed throughout the world like separately because we all have a duty. And so you have to be strong and you have to be able to do things alone, on your own, and be your own strength. And it's hard because instead of being thanked, right, you're going to be argued with, right? People are going to stand 10 toes down on their tenuous belief systems because they're not ready to let go of them. And it's hard because all you're trying to do is heal, help, and elevate. And instead of being thanked or loved for it, you are withdrawn from or side-eyed. So it's interesting, but I just want to express that. And for me personally, if I'm feeling stressed, I'm not going to drink. Doesn't mean I don't drink. It just means that it just makes it worse. And I like to process my emotions. If I'm drinking, it's because I want to, right? I want to explore a certain dimension or a certain aspect of my own psyche, and not because I'm trying to escape a certain emotion. And when we talk about liquor itself, liquor immediately numbs 5. So when you talk about that gateway of discomfort, 257 or 857, 5's right in the middle. So if you consume a substance that immediately numbs that middle factor of that pathway, that's why people do it so often to try and alleviate stress, alleviating anxiety, and forget about the wounding that is held into, right? But that's what 7 is. It's liquor. It's darkness, but it's also substances, right? And using them as a coping skill or just getting mean. We'll get into it. But I bring that up to say this too. Just because I am enlightened, just because I am high frequency, doesn't mean that discomfort doesn't also tend to make me a little bit imbalanced, right? So I just wanted to share that. Stay strong, stay woke, stay joyous and balanced, right? Because we must always lead by example. If they want to question us in our belief systems, and yet we're more balanced than they are, we're more spiritually connected than they are, they have no choice but to question.